Imagine a world where every nuclear bomb explodes at once. What would happen? In the realm of theoretical disasters, the simultaneous detonation of the global nuclear arsenal is a scenario of almost unimaginable proportions. As of today, it's estimated that there are about 13,000 nuclear warheads spread across the globe. These weapons of mass destruction are capable of leveling cities and decimating populations. If activated simultaneously, the explosion would generate an unprecedented scale of energy release. The blast would instantly obliterate the surrounding areas, creating massive craters and devastating landscapes. The severe shock waves and the immense heat would tear through the atmosphere, setting the stage for further catastrophic environmental and human impacts. This hypothetical scenario sets the foundation for understanding not just the immediate explosive force, but also the extensive and long-term effects on our planet. The chain reaction of environmental, political, and social consequences would reshape the Earth as we know it. Now let's delve deeper into the immediate aftermath of this catastrophic scenario. First, consider the immediate force of the explosions. When discussing the power of nuclear bombs, it's essential to grasp the sheer magnitude of energy released. The combined yield of the global nuclear arsenal is equivalent to about 1,400 Hiroshima bombs. Imagine, then, the catastrophic power unleashed if every nuclear warhead detonated simultaneously. The blast radius, the area of complete devastation caused by the shock wave, varies based on the bomb's yield, but let's break it down with a general example. For a single 1 megaton bomb, the blast radius can extend outward significantly, obliterating everything in its path up to several miles. Now multiply this effect by the thousands of warheads in existence, spread across various strategic points around the globe. Consider a major city like New York, Paris, or Tokyo. The initial blast would instantly flatten these metropolises. Buildings, bridges, and monuments would crumble. The infrastructure that supports millions of lives would vanish in seconds. The energy released would not only destroy on a physical level, but would also generate intense heat, sparking fires that could burn for miles beyond the initial blast zones. The visualization of such devastation is chilling. Entire regions, possibly even small countries, could be wiped off the map, leaving behind a barren, smoldering landscape. With the landscape obliterated, the impact extends far beyond the initial craters. Following the blast, firestorms would engulf the surroundings. As the initial shockwaves subside, an even more terrifying force takes hold. The intense heat generated by nuclear explosions is more than enough to ignite massive firestorms. These aren't ordinary fires, they are voracious infernos that consume everything in their path. In urban areas, buildings, vehicles, and streets would become fuel for these raging fires, creating towering flames and thick, choking smoke. The heat would be so intense that it could melt asphalt and turn structures into ovens. Meanwhile, in forested regions, the situation would be just as dire. Acres upon acres of trees would light up like matchsticks, exacerbating the spread of the firestorm and increasing its intensity. These firestorms would create their own weather systems, pulling in high winds that further feed the flames. As they burn, they consume vast amounts of oxygen, making the air unbreathable and leading to suffocation for any remaining life forms caught within their grasp. The fires alone would be a disaster, but the atmosphere itself would bear witness to greater turmoil. Now imagine a sky shrouded in darkness. This is not the dark of a stormy night or a solar eclipse, but a darkness brought about by a global catastrophe known as a nuclear winter. Nuclear winter is a chilling hypothesis first put forward in the early 1980s, suggesting that if enough nuclear bombs were detonated, the resultant fires would loft massive amounts of soot and debris into the stratosphere. Here, unaffected by rain, this soot could remain aloft for years, encircling the globe and blocking sunlight. This blockade of the sun would lead to a dramatic drop in temperatures across the world. Picture a world where average global temperatures plummet by as much as 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Such a sudden change would not merely be a matter of colder winters or longer seasons, it would fundamentally alter every aspect of our environment. Agriculture would face immediate and devastating impacts. Most of today's staple crops, such as wheat, rice, and corn, require specific climatic conditions to thrive. A significant drop in temperature and sunlight would result in failed harvests and widespread famine. Consider the breadbaskets of the world lying dormant, their soils frozen and unyielding. But the impact extends beyond human food supply. Ecosystems around the world would reel under the sudden change. Forests, wetlands, and grasslands would struggle to adapt. Many species unable to migrate or evolve quickly enough to match the rapid climate shifts could face extinction. This loss of biodiversity would disrupt ecosystems, leading to unforeseeable consequences for natural balances that have been in place for millennia. Moreover, the cold, dark world of a nuclear winter would also affect the hydrological cycle. Reduced evaporation rates would lead to less cloud formation and, consequently, drastically reduced precipitation. Rivers, lakes, and aquifers would begin to dwindle, compounding the crisis initiated by food shortages. As the sun dims, the long-term survival challenges begin. In this bleak scenario, humanity would be thrust into a struggle against the cold and dark, with every flicker of light and warmth becoming a precious commodity. Radiation follows the chaos of fire and ice. In the wake of a global nuclear detonation, radioactive fallout becomes a sinister specter over the surviving world. As the dust settles, radioactive particles lifted by the initial blasts are caught in the jet streams, spreading far beyond the explosion sites encircling the globe. This fallout is not a singular entity but a mixture of different radionuclides, each with its own half-life and way of decaying. Some of these, like iodine-131 and cesium-137, are absorbed by the human body, mimicking essential nutrients but delivering a lethal dose of radiation instead. When inhaled or ingested, they can wreak havoc on internal organs and bone marrow, leading to acute radiation syndrome and a dramatically increased risk of cancers. The environment does not escape unscathed. Radiation infiltrates ecosystems from the tallest trees to the smallest insects, disrupting natural cycles and food chains. In water systems, radionuclides can persist, affecting fish and other aquatic life, and eventually, any species that relies on these water sources, including humans. Perhaps most insidiously, the genetic damage inflicted by radiation can span generations. Mutations introduced in the DNA of survivors and their descendants may lead to congenital disabilities and new, unforeseen health challenges. Despite the initial blast subsiding, the invisible threat of radiation would linger long after the explosions cease, a haunting reminder of the nuclear age's perilous legacy. With the environment in shambles, civilization faces collapse. As the dust settles from the unprecedented global detonation of nuclear weapons, the very fabric of society begins to unravel. Picture a world where cities are ruins, and the infrastructure that supported large populations is irreparably damaged. In the aftermath, the breakdown of social, economic, and political structures is inevitable. Governments, overwhelmed and under-resourced, fail to maintain order and provide for their citizens. The rule of law weakens, and in its place, chaos and anarchy begin to spread. Communities fracture along lines of resource availability, with water and food becoming scarce commodities. Imagine entire regions depopulated due to the uninhabitability caused by radiation and destruction. Mass displacement becomes the norm, not the exception. Millions of survivors are forced to leave their irradiated homelands, seeking refuge in areas less affected by the fallout. This migration is not peaceful. As resources dwindle, conflicts erupt over the control of arable land and clean water, turning survivors against each other in a desperate fight for survival. Economically, the global market collapses. Currency loses its value when the infrastructure supporting trade and commerce disintegrates. Barter systems re-emerge, and local economies take the place of global trade. People revert to more primitive means of survival, relying on hunting and gathering, forever altering their way of life. Psychologically, the impact on survivors is profound. The constant threat of violence, the loss of loved ones, and the uncertainty of the future contribute to widespread psychological trauma. Communities may see increases in mental health disorders, violence, and a breakdown of traditional moral and social norms. Culturally and technologically, humanity could face a regression. The loss of centralized education systems and the destruction of knowledge repositories such as libraries and universities hinder intellectual progress. The survivors' focus shifts from innovation and development to mere survival. In this new world, the remnants of humanity would struggle to rebuild from the ashes. The path forward is uncertain, and the resilience of human spirit is tested like never before. This exploration into simultaneous nuclear detonation paints a grim picture. We've journeyed through the immediate, overwhelming destruction, witnessing the vast blast radii that obliterate everything in their paths. We've felt the heat of the relentless firestorms capable of incinerating cities in mere moments. We've wandered through the chilling reality of a nuclear winter where sun-blocking smoke plunges the world into darkness and cold, devastating global agriculture. We've navigated the silent threat of radiation fallout, an invisible killer that lingers long after the initial explosions, poisoning water, soil, and air. We've observed the inevitable collapse of societies, as infrastructure crumbles and governments falter under the strain of unprecedented disaster. These reflections are not mere exercises in fear, but stark reminders of the catastrophic power of nuclear arsenals. They underscore the urgent need for disarmament and the pursuit of peace. Let this scenario remain a stark reminder of the power humanity wields and the responsibility that comes with it.